This is my new place that I'm going to be recording these videos. I just moved to a new place, so here it is. And now let's talk about some GTA 5, because I just recompleted this game recently. The first time I bought this game and played this game, I didn't finish the whole campaign. I played through it for about 3 hours and then I just stopped because it was really disappointing to me at the time. But recently I went back and completed the game from start to finish, and I can say some of my opinions have changed. But it's overall still a very disappointing game to me, especially compared to the kind of potential that it could have had. But let's talk about the good stuff first. Let's talk about the great qualities of this game. And let's talk about the fact that I'm wearing a Toy Story shirt while talking about GTA. These two worlds just don't fit together. It makes no sense, but it's not like the rest of my life makes sense anyway. Rockstar really put a lot of effort into this game and it shows. So no matter what I'm going to complain about this game, it's not because of a lack of effort, that's for sure. But this effort doesn't really translate to the quality of the game, which I will talk about later once I finish all of the good stuff first. Another great thing about this game is the art direction. I like the graphics of this game, I like the look of the city, I like the feel, I like the big skyscrapers, really Los Angeles inspired look in the game, and I like just zooming past the traffic or looking at all these big buildings just rushing past me. It's just a great feeling, and GTA 5 really nailed that. Especially if you look at some of these buildings, they have so much detail. As like some of these buildings have graffiti, some of these buildings have windows, and you can see someone inside doing something. And stuff like that is really cool. Sometimes you can even enter somebody's backyard and just check out their backyard, and sometimes there's people hanging out in their backyard. So that kind of stuff is really cool. And I also like the combat in this game, which I think is a drastic improvement from the last few GTA games. It's probably the best combat in any GTA game, as a combination of two things. First, the cover mechanics. I always wanted to take cover in a GTA game, and this game really does fantastic with the cover mechanics. You can take cover behind a lot of different stuff, and it often feels very fluid and seamless, and it really helps when it comes to combat because you don't get shot that much when you're hiding behind something, which is just common sense, but it took GTA 5 a long time to figure out how to nail the cover mechanics. And the second thing is the special powers, which I just totally love this. One of the characters, Michael, has a special power that slows down time, which makes no sense in the context of the game, but if you just ignore that from a gameplay standpoint, having that special power is fantastic, especially when you are being surrounded by enemies and you just switch on slow motion and you can score one headshot, another headshot. It makes you feel like a badass. It makes you feel like Max Payne. And Rockstar did Max Payne 3, so maybe that's where they got the influence from. But anyway, I like the special powers, and I hope that maybe in a future game you can switch between any special power that you desire. I hope there are multiple special powers and you can choose on your own. But I don't want this game to end up like Saints Row, so don't take that the wrong way. I want special powers, but I don't want the whole game to be about special powers. Now with that said, let's get into why I find this game to be so disappointing. This is just my personal opinion, of course. Pretty much 90% of the world's population loves this game. So I'm in that lonely 10% right there. Maybe it's like 95%. I'm like in the 5%. And this is considered one of the greatest games of all time. So I'm definitely in a minority here by saying that GTA 5 is really, really disappointing. And let's talk about the story first, because for me that's why I play a GTA game. Not necessarily I think that the main story, but all of the small story parts in the game, all of the missions, and that's why I play this game really. Not just to cause chaos, not just to wreak havoc on the city, but also to experience the story. And I just didn't like the story that much in this game. It's not like the whole story is bad. There are good moments from time to time. However, the big problem here is that you control 3 characters. That's one of the biggest appeals of GTA 5. You control 3 different characters and you can switch between those characters. And I think that out of the 3 characters, only one of them is really that interesting, and that is Michael, who I think that is really the main character of this whole game. Even though you can switch between other characters, they really feel more like supporting characters to me. I think Michael feels like a true main character, which makes no sense because the game keeps on pushing Franklin as the main character. But really, I feel like Michael is the main character, and Michael has some really interesting story parts that have not been explored before in the other GTA games. He's kind of a criminal who is going through a midlife crisis, which is both really sad and really funny at the same time, and I really enjoy all of his story moments. But with every Michael story moment, you have to attend to the 2 less interesting characters, Trevor and Franklin. Now Trevor is this unlikable, psychopathic character, and I have no problems with having a more flawed or more problematic protagonist. It's totally fine. But the thing with Trevor, he feels really one note and very inconsistent. And doesn't feel like he's a character as much as he is a symbol of the kind of message that Rockstar is trying to deliver. He just does whatever the game developers program him to do. He doesn't feel like a character with his own traits because of just how constantly inconsistent he is. And he's just very unlikable in a general sense. And let's talk about Franklin, who I like to call him second-rate CJ. He is the kind of product, he's the kind of product that your parents buy to you at a cheap place, and it's like second-rate stuff because they don't want to buy the expensive stuff, so they decide to buy the cheap stuff at the market next door. That is Franklin. CJ is the real stuff, and Franklin is just a second-rate version of CJ. It's impossible to avoid this comparison because of how close their stories are. Both of them come from hood, and they go out to the bigger world in order to pursue money or glory or something, and then now the hood wants them back and they get pulled back into the hood, and they are in the middle of this struggle between choosing the hood where they came from and this new bigger city with better opportunities. That's exactly the same thing that CJ went through, except CJ did it better, and CJ did it much earlier. So really, I'm only interested in Michael's story here, but the stories of Trevor or Franklin just keep interrupting, and it's really frustrating because I keep wanting to go back to Michael's story, but they just keep interrupting again and again and again, and it's frustrating. If the game was just Michael as a single protagonist, I would have loved this game a lot more. And let's talk about the map, because while I praise the look and feel of the map, the design of the map really isn't what I expected and really isn't what I want from a GTA game. The big problem with the map here is it also has to do with the progression of the game. This game has a lousy sense of progression. You start the game and you end the game, and it doesn't feel like you've gone through a big journey from a gameplay standpoint. It doesn't feel like you have earned a lot of different stuff and now you feel like a stronger person than you were in the beginning. None of that stuff. There's not really a sense of progression in this game apart from revealing more of the story. And a huge part of what makes GTA San Andreas that much more satisfying is the fact that you start off at this rundown and older city, and you start off in this hood, and the more you play the game, the more you unlock different areas in the map. And a lot of the areas that you unlock just get more and more interesting, especially the last part of the map where you unlock in GTA San Andreas. That part of the map is like Las Vegas inspired, bustling and really busy and colorful city, and you really feel satisfied because you went from that old rundown town that you live, and now you're in this Las Vegas inspired city. Now you have that in GTA 5 as well. You also unlock different parts of the map. However, the parts that you unlock in GTA 5 are never as interesting as the place you started off as. Like every area that you unlocked feels really pointless because it's just never as good as the beginning, and it doesn't ever live up to the beginning, which is very promising, but I never expected that to be the height of the map. But it's not just the map in terms of progression. Another big problem here is also the weapons, and also just money and currency, and the general feeling of progression in this game is extremely lacking. You can beat a mission in this game and you don't feel anything. You can beat maybe 3 or 4 missions in a row and you still don't really feel anything, because some of these missions, they don't even reward you with anything substantial. They may reward you with a little bit money, they may reward you with a new weapon unlock, but they never actually feel substantial in any single way. A lot of these unlocks just feel like they're there and that's it. But just the progression in this game, it just sucks, and I hope next time when I complete a mission I get a better reward than just unlocking another mission. And the driving in this game is also really not that good. I mean, not like the other GTA games had great driving. The other GTA games had functional driving, but the driving in GTA 5 is barely functional. I played realistic racing games and arcade racing games, and GTA 5 is neither of those. GTA 5 is in a league of its own, and not in a good way. GTA 5 driving doesn't feel like driving as much as it feels like ice skating. That's what it feels like, because it's just so slippery and you have so little control over your car and they just slip all over the place. I tried upgrading the handling of my car and the grip and everything, and my car still handles the same way. And not just cars, it also extends to helicopters and planes and other vehicles. And I want to get back to the point of Trevor right now, because Trevor's missions contain a lot of helicopter and planes and other flying vehicles, and handling those vehicles really suck. I mean, they also sucked back in GTA Vice City. There's that notorious flying vehicle mission that everybody hates. But the flying vehicle missions are a lot more frequent in GTA 5 because it's part of a character. Trevor has a background in flying, that's why you have a lot of these missions, and I always try to avoid these missions, but a lot of times they are unavoidable. And also, just a lot of these missions where you have to chase somebody in a car are really hard to complete when the handling of the car is just so terrible, which is quite a waste considering this game does have extensive car customization options. So you can customize your car however you want and do whatever kind of imagination you have, except no matter how you customize your car, it's still going to end up handling like ice skating, because that's just how the game is. Also, cars in this game, they disappear for no reason. It happens so many times to me. When I just park my car, I turn around, and I turn back and the car is gone. It's just disappeared. It's like it got beamed up a UFO and just flew away to Mars. And this game really should have had a system like Saints Row, where you can save your cars at the garage and anytime you want, you can just spawn the car at the garage. But no, they don't allow you to do that. You only have about 6 maximum spaces. So you can only store about 6 cars max, which is kind of a big problem because most people like to collect cars in a game like this. And your cars often get impounded in a very short period of time. I understand that cars do get impounded in real life, yes, I know that. But in this game, the cops impound your car almost immediately. It takes them about 5-7 minutes and your car gets impounded right there, really fast. And you can only store 2 cars in the cops impound place. So if the cars impound more than 2 cars, one of the cars is going to disappear. And that's one of the reasons that causes so many disappearing vehicles in this game. And sometimes I would spend lots of time just trying to customize my car to whatever kind of imagination I have at the time. And I would spend lots of money and time and energy customizing the car, and it would just disappear. And speaking of customizing, I also like to customize the look of my characters. I like to have them wear all kinds of different clothing, and I like to have them wear different kinds of shoes and jackets. And I like to keep the aesthetics of my characters. But this game is also really frustrating because whenever you change to another character, that character gets to have a life of its own. So for example, when you switch from Trevor to Michael, Trevor becomes a kind of an artificial intelligence controlled character. And Trevor just goes on to live his life. He goes to wherever he wants, he does whatever he wants, and when you switch back to that character, which is in this case Trevor, he's now wearing different clothes. And he's now somewhere in the middle of the ocean, I don't know doing what. And it's really frustrating because it gives you no sense of control. And it's very important for a video game to let the player have a sense of agency and sense of control, which you don't have in this game, because whenever you switch to another character, this character just goes to do whatever he wants, or he wants. It's like being a parent to 3 kids. Whenever you look at one kid, the other kid runs away. And those are really my main problems with this game. The driving, the characters, controlling the characters, and the story, and the map, sense of progression, which is a lot of things. But now let's talk about a smaller thing. The radio stations in this game, as well as the personality of the radio station, and the residents, and the NPCs. Because a lot of them have the same personality. I find that this game has a lot of characters that are really elitist, and they are really exclusive, and they really look down on everyone else, which is good. It's one of the personalities that you expect from a GTA game, this kind of narcissistic jerk that you want to punch them in the face. Fine. But this game has 20 radio stations and even more characters that are just walking on the streets. And a lot of these characters just share the same personality, and it gets old really quickly, especially the radio stations. All of the DJs, they either fall into the stereotype of not caring about the world, or thinking all of the world is worse than them and they are better than the rest of the world, or they are just really cool. They just fall into these 3 stereotypes. And I really hated the radio stations in this game, because a lot of the radio stations don't really have a theme. And even when they do have a theme, they're not really consistent with the tone of the game. The tone of the game is this really playful, bright, colorful tone, but that doesn't mean you can have Backstreet Boys in a GTA game. It doesn't work at all. When I heard Backstreet Boys, I just totally lost my mind. Why am I listening to Backstreet Boys while I'm trying to rob a bank? And there are some radio stations here like Worldwide FM, or maybe Blonde FM. These radio stations have no theme. They just play whatever kind of music that they want. They can play Marvin Gaye, and then the next song that they play is some hip-hop, East Coast, West Coast stuff, which makes no sense. They don't even give out the same vibe. And a lot of these radio stations, they just don't have a consistent theme, and they don't have a consistent genre. And when you want to listen to a specific genre, you don't know which radio station to tune to. And the songs here just aren't as memorable. I do like a few radio stations, like I like Radio Mirror Park a lot, I like Winewood Boulevard a lot. Those radio stations are good. But there's just way too many radio stations. There's 20 radio stations here, and they spread themselves out a little bit too thin. I just don't really enjoy listening to most of the radio stations here. So those are my biggest problems with GTA 5.